Evening, it is 5 p.m. This is the Public Safety Committee meeting date of March 2nd, 2026. I'm Rob Watton, chair of the committee, and along with me, I have council members Catherine Cotton and Brian Holloway. As well as we're being joined by our city attorney, Dina Burke, city administrator, Michael Chambliss, Mayor James Mayhew, and Deputy City Clerk Interim Rebecca Solom. And with that, is there an approval for tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we will accept the agenda as presented. Next, we move on to public comments. We allow residents and those that are interested to come in person and make their concerns known on public safety. You have up to 3 minutes. Since there's no one in the audience, unless one of the staff that's in the room wants to come up and use the time of public comment. If you have comments, send those in to the city clerk or to the city administration or any one of the council members, including myself, and we'll make sure that those are properly responded to. And with that, I'll close public comments for today. And that brings us up to Agenda Bill 26-004, ordinance adding Chapter 10.13 automated traffic safety cameras to Snoqualmie Municipal Code. And for that, I will call on Interim Chief Horace. Oh, Mayor, would you like to go first?
I was just going to say, we left this item on the agenda just in case you had any questions. We don't have anything additional to present to you or any questions for you, but in case you had any questions for us, we're here to answer them.
Okay. Well, with that, the floor is open. Council members, any questions, concerns, observations? Council member Holloway.
But narrowing to the agenda bill at hand. I have concerns at times when cities, I'm sure we make the police force worry about revenue.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Your microphone.
Oh,
Start one more time.
I have concerns when cities make police forces worry about revenue. I have concerns when cities delegate level of enforcement to for-profit organizations. I want the police force focused on what is the appropriate level of enforcement separate from those concerns. Those concerns should be back to the politicians. So I would like some assistance, or I can go do it in crayon. What I would like in the ordinance that the administration makes recommendation on the levels of enforcement, but the council approves those and put those in place. I don't want you forced in a position where you're suggesting a level of enforcement to potentially pay for the service. If the service were to cost, if the level of enforcement would be uncomfortable to recapture the service cost, don't know. Don't know how long these things are going to be in place. Could be 20, 30 years, who knows? But if we get into that condition, I don't want you put in that position. I want the council put in that position that we want a particular level of service, but it's going to cost us more than what we get from it. We have to find a way to fund
it. Mayor Mayhew, please.
Yeah, if I could give you just a clear commitment. So we'll show you numbers and go over this again when we bring the particular vendors that we're going to bring to you to look at for potential approval. So you'll see this with each vendor, but I'll give you the commitment that the level of enforcement will be determined by only our enforcement needs and our enforcement capability. What do I mean by that? The number of infractions that we can issue is a function of how many our officers can look at. We anticipate right now that we will see more infractions, well more infractions than our current staff can handle. The number of infractions we plan to issue will be limited based on the staffing that we have. And we're absolutely confident that this level of staffing we have is more than enough to cover the cost of the system. Okay, the external vendor costs and so on. So the potential future discussion is if we come to you and say, look, we have this level of violations occurring and we don't have enough officers to get to it. This is how we've calibrated that. Because what we will do is calibrate it based on the most severe infractions and then working down from there. So we'll come to you and we'll report to you regularly how that's going. We do anticipate that after the initial enforcement period that probably infraction levels will drop, but we'll see how that goes. And then we'll come to you if we need more resources. And it'll be sort of a question of here's the level of infractions we're seeing. Here's the level that we're actually issuing. And that's resource, we're at our resource limit, and then we'll have a discussion with you about whether to add more resources at that point. But at no point do we anticipate even being remotely close to an idea that we need to issue more infractions than we would be issuing in order to cover costs. And to be clear, covering costs will never be part of that decision of how many infractions to issue. So we absolutely give you that commitment, and you'll see that in the numbers when we bring the proposals to you.
Councilmember Holloway for a follow-up.
I never make ordinances for the existing administration. Okay, these are 20, 30-year decisions we're making. There are cities out there which have delegated out enforcement. Case in point, Chicago. Take a look at what they've done for parking. They're a big city and they're a big bind. Okay, so this can go sideways. And if somebody can predict things 20 years in advance, please let me know. Let's go buy some stock. Okay, so I'm not suggesting this as regards to the current administration and current chief. I'm just suggesting long-term. If these things get sideways, that's an issue for the council, not for the chief of police. I just want him strictly focused on what is the appropriate level of enforcement, separate from that. Okay, so I still stand. I want that decision somehow to come back to council that we own that level of enforcement and that bill for the service.
I'm going to go to Mayor Mayhew, and then I do have a follow-up.
So what we can do is if you'd like to see something put into this ordinance, we can give you some language.
Yeah, please, because like I said, I do it in crayon.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
not right.
No, we're happy to do that. So the two paths are we sort of try and figure out exactly what we would like now in this meeting, which we're happy to do. And we probably have time to do that if you would like. The other option is that we could just set up a time for you to connect with city attorney. But what we can do is give you the exact language that you could propose as an amendment to accomplish what you're looking for.
Please.
We just need to know, just be really clear on what exactly you want added. City attorney, are you clear on exactly what he needs, or do you have some questions?
Maybe we can connect offline so I
Okay.
can know exactly what we're looking for.
And then we'll provide that language to you so that you are in a position to make that motion on Monday.
Thank you
Thank
very much. Thank you. And I think that it's noteworthy what you bring up. Also keep in mind what we're doing is allowing for traffic cameras to augment the work of our police department. We do not have it in our city code to allow it. There are some other things that are kind of extraneous as far as, we're not talking about analyzing the costs and setting things to the cost, but we're setting policy that says it's okay to use these kind of cameras, and this is the purpose that we're using it for, and we're not collecting and sharing data information outside the city and making sure that we have those guardrails in. but it allows us to move forward with soliciting for other companies or whomever to come in and do this. And finally, the citations have to come from the police department. It does not come from the vendor. It's total control. All that they're doing is they're kind of the middleware that comes in and says, okay, we captured this car at this time and they were exceeding the speed. And we're not talking about how the police go about doing their job that they do every day. We definitely don't dictate, do you give a citation out if you're over 10 miles an hour or 15? That's really comes back to the police department and using their judgment. So just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. This is the first step in us being able to augment what we have for the police department so they can focus on other things. Plus, this is only for 3 school zones, 2 cameras each is a proposal. It's not going to be covering speed throughout the city, and this will help the officers have the time to go out and do enforcement in other areas and be able to move that around, because it's people, and we know this, that once people know that these cameras are in 3 zones, they're going to slow down. Hopefully their habits are better, but it's not going to be the end all answer for what we're doing, if that makes sense.
If I could just
Mayor.
clarify, I know that, I'm pretty sure you're clear on this, but just to reemphasize, under state law, as well as under this code, only our officers can issue citations. The vendor can tee up to us all the information required to make a decision, but only our officers, under this proposed code and under state law, only our officers can issue citations. And then I just want to be clear, City Attorney, you will reach out directly to Councilmember Holloway.
I will.
So I'll leave it to you guys to have this in place to meet his need by Monday. Yeah, okay.
Councilmember Cotton.
So I obviously saw on the information included again on this is that it did specify the city of Snoqualmie is the only, has the access to the materials only. And will we be able to get that information that the city attorney is going to provide or touch base with?
It'll have to be a motion at council. So,
So we won't be able to see it.
I don't
prior-
know. Worst case, you'll see if my crayons don't come down tight enough to meet till council, that's just forewarning. I'm going to make a motion.
You're right, but it would sure be nice to be able to
If I can
review
get,
that.
if we can get done beforehand, I'm more than happy to send it out.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
All right, let me think. I just want to make sure we're keeping in line with the OPMA
Mhm.
with that too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I mean, it
We can talk.
would be
Yeah, we'll talk about
included,
that,
it
yeah.
would be included in the agenda packet.
no,
No, not the motion to amend. But we
we-
know that it's coming, and that's probably,
But the other council members don't know.
and it's, they have to be on the same level as we are, as far as once the motion is brought forward and amended, the amendment is put out, then we can debate it at that point.
And-
But I would
We'll
suspect,
catch 2 other ones, council members and FNA. So most members will know.
Okay.
If I don't cover them, have that.
just as long as it's not a chain, right? More than 3 of us know
At a time.
what the motion is.
Chair, can I respond to 2 comments that were made?
Mhm.
Okay. And I want to make sure we're wide-eyed when we go into this. The architecture, at least the vendor that was discussed, has is cool. For particular reasons, but as it sees a speeding car, it takes the 3 pictures in 1 video and sends it to its corporate wherever. Where are they based?
They're out of
Minnesota,
Ari-
isn't it?
I think that one's Arizona.
Arizona,
But they'll send it almost certainly to some cloud-based
probably,
location that may
Okay.
change over time.
but this is different than Flock because Flock is an interactive, and yes, it has been used to locate people in the immediate. This is not an immediate system.
Mhm.
I suspect it's cellular, so it's going to be some delay from when it does to when it sends, and it probably does it at night. I don't know. I would if I were just having fun. Um, but you are sending it to a third party. They are subject to federal requests. So be careful of saying this will never get out beyond us. It might, and tell you the truth, it might, and we don't know it. So just be careful. We're contracting this service. It is not an interactive service, so it cannot be used to immediately locate individuals. It is not a mass surveillance system because it filters down to only those in violation per the parameters we set. Okay, so it has several limitations that make it difficult to use for other purposes. But do we know full control of that data? No, we do not. So be careful on that. There was another one point I lost it. Sorry, I've been watching way too many YouTube videos with traffic cameras. Oh, the other point, I'm sorry, forgive me, Chair. The other point is, also understand, the reason why the state law is written the way it is, basically challenges to these types of systems based on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of, being able to face your accuser. When your accuser is a little box, it's kind of hard. It has to be an officer. That's why they put officers in the loop on these things. And also why they moved it as an infraction versus an actual traffic thing to try and avoid those constitutional conflicts, which have occurred in the other states, to pull it back along these lines. So it's an interesting thing.
I think that you bring up a couple things. First of all, it's not real time. So there is a time delay. So it's not as if they can use it to locate. Anyone can use it to locate, including our own police cannot use it to locate people. And I think the other thing that is a fact, and that is the one particular vendor we're looking at has already been adopted at, I believe, 20 or more agencies in Washington State. And it has been a system that has been in place. This technology has been around a lot longer than a decade. So it's had in Washington State. So it has a track record of seeming to work. But and when we go out to other vendors, that's going to be top of mind is what else, what other systems have been tried and true that will make sure that it's a workable thing that matches what's going on in other communities, whether it's in Washington State or elsewhere. So I just want to bring that point up. Anything else that from the administration, council members, chief, did we miss anything?
No, not that I can think of offhand.
Councilmember Holloway, are we
I do want
okay?
you to think of one other thing though. Up on the Parkway, I understand the point solution. Downtown, there's only part of those residential streets, I believe, are in the school zone. There may be extended portions of the residential streets are outside of the school zone. How are we not just shifting the problem out of the school zone to the next block? I do want to address the concerns, but I don't want to put a solution that just shifts it somewhere else. Or maybe we do, thinking it'll carry over. I don't know, but I just caution that I want to make sure we get it.
Councilmember Cotton, then Mayor Mayhew.
Just if you're thinking about specifically Park Street downtown, that school zones, the two school zones at Meadowbrook do coincide all the way from Centennial Park. The end of the school zone is all the way down past Schuschman. It's down there by the park, Riverbend Park. That's the end of the school zone from the high school. So they run together. So I don't think we're gonna, and really past that, it's just Newton Street before you hit 202. So I think that it'll be hard to pick up speed dramatically in 2 blocks to get to that area.
You were an ever teenage boy.
I was
I
a
remember my car.
girl with a 5 on the floor.
Right. Anything else? Mayor Mayhew, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. The intention is to put these in school zones. In fact, the location is such that the camera will actually, and by the way, it's 2 stills and 1 video. So 12-second video. And they'll be positioned such that they will actually capture the flashing beacon, which says, speed limit 20 right now. So it's right in the school zones. And what we're bringing to is focused on school zone speed enforcement. So it's not abroad. This is school zones that we're focusing on doing this at.
Okay, thank you. With no other questions or comments, thank you very much, Chief Gracie.
I have the next one too.
Oh, you've got the next one. Okay. Well, let's cue it up. Crisis intervention training. Do you have a comment before
I
we
do
move
have a
on?
quick comment, if I might just.
Yes,
Which I
Councilmember Cotton.
didn't catch when making the motion to approve the agenda. There was no last meeting minutes included in this for us to approve or review.
Ah,
My son had the flu, and so I wasn't able to get them finalized for you.
We'll get
thank
two
you
next
very
time.
much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even notice. So thank you. Yes, Mayor Mayhew.
I can confirm for you that they exist. I reviewed them today
Okay,
because they came to exist today, and they'll be at your next meeting.
okay, sounds good. 2 for 1 next time. Thank you. Chief, back to you.
Good evening, council members. Mayor Mayhew, for the record, interim chief Gary Horace. I've had a couple of requests on just updating on some of the crisis intervention training that we discussed at the end of last year and how things were going to go. So a lot of the information in this presentation is from the last presentation. I just kind of updated it for where we're at today and some of the things that have changed. To give a little background, our police officers in Washington State are required to attend 24 hours of training annually. Out of that, 2 hours is required. It's an online class that's sent out from the Criminal Justice Training Center specific to crisis intervention. Each year, it's a different topic in some realm of crisis intervention. And it can range from anything, from how to respond to a certain type of call to the needs of somebody who is experiencing, for instance, an episode of schizophrenia. So there's a lot of online training on that we do. It's a 2-hour required course. In addition to that, the state requires an annual it requires 24 hours of training in some type of de-escalation. Typically it's every 3 years and I just attended it last week. I was gone for 3 days, and it's on patrol tactics. It's a patrol refresher class. And that class goes over how to respond to calls, communicating with individuals, whether they're in crisis or any really kind of anything. It's an overall patrol class, but it teaches you a lot of the de-escalation because state law requires 40 hours of training in de-escalation or crisis intervention training every 3 years. So they encompass that 24-hour training into that 3-year cycle. So I attended it technically a little over 3.5 years ago. Due to last year's events through the year, I did a lot of rescheduling and I said I have to get it done. So there's a lot of that. So on top of the 24 hours, we see an additional 40 hours in a 3-year period. The state also requires that 25% of every agency attend a 40-hour crisis intervention training. That is done through a court ruling. And it's a tedious one where a lot of the police chiefs are asking for the academy to start teaching that at the academy, because it's really a one and done class, but there's a lot to it. And it's nice to have those new officers coming out of the academy with it before they hit the road. So for next year's legislative items, that is one of my asks, is that's going to be at the top of my list of getting that curriculum into our basic law enforcement academy and our equivalency academy for those that come from out of state. I think that's an important one. So we respond to a multitude of crisis intervention calls or people in crisis, things like that. And we started looking at what the department does. My goal is not just to meet the state standards, but to exceed them. And one of those ways of doing that is having every officer attend the 40-hour CIT class by the end of this year. This was one of the topics from last year, and why ultimately what's bringing us to this update is this 40-hour CIT class in King County is paid for through tax money that King County receives. And they were looking at cutting the funding and stopping the class at the end of last year, which is when I brought it to this committee. That had, in the King County budget cycle, they actually approved to continue the class and have scheduled classes out through the rest of the year. And Acting Captain Moat actually scheduled out the officers, looking at their schedule and what it would take to get every officer there through the end of the year, starting after April, when we have a little bit of breathing room on our scheduling. So by the end of 2026, every officer will go to this class. I do have one going in March. He's on light duty, so he's going in a couple of weeks, and it's a perfect time to send him a little bit early. So we're utilizing those times and making sure that happens. Through that, we also get a reimbursement from the academy on overtime at a certain dollar rate. It's not going to be our full overtime rate, but we do get reimbursement for the officer if they accrue overtime and or if we have to backfill their shifts. So we have some work around with that to kind of help mitigate our expenses. So by the end of this year, that is our goal. We also started assessing, after the loss of the North Bend contract, kind of where we're at, what we're looking at, what the city of Snoqualmie requires. I added a little bit of in here for staffing. This is just kind of the update from the last one, but we have slotted for the police department 18 positions, the chief, the captain, 2 administrative positions, 4 sergeants, a detective, an SRO, and 8 patrol officers, providing 3 officer minimum, or 3 officers on every shift with a 2 officer minimum. With our assessment, I went back and looked at our calls for service with anybody who is in crisis. So that top line is the big number. That is how many calls for service we've received over the last 3 years in each year. There's a caveat to 23 and 24. We did have a couple of repeat callers, which I think we are all aware of. So when you take those out, the bottom number there on the percentage shows what our call rate is compared to our actual calls for service. So for example, 2023, we did 354 calls for service out of 5,985. You take out the repeat caller, it comes out to 3.39% of our call volume in total. We fast forward to 2025, and what we did last year, we had 79 calls. We did 19 involuntary commits. That's when we take somebody to the hospital who needs treatment, an emergent treatment, are unable to care for themselves or a danger to themselves or others. And then we had 6,284 calls for service last year, which totaled for a 1.26% of our call volume being crisis intervention or some type of crisis intervention call. The bottom part there is information from 23 and 24 of when we had reports taken and written when we had a mental health professional. So you can see that number is quite low. The officers are handling the majority of that, which takes me into kind of the next step of what we're doing. Since 2024 or September of 2024, we have not had a mental health professional due to a couple of things and a couple of reasons. And so what that's done is it's had the officers rely on their training, their experience, and our resources throughout the county. We utilize Eastside Fire and Rescue's mobile integrated healthcare response unit, Snoqualmie Valley Hospital, the Recovery Navigator Program, who have been phenomenal sources for us. They come out, they do follow-ups, they're communicating with people. If we need to make a phone call, they are on the spot coming out to respond and just to do a checkup. If we just say, hey, we think something's going on, they will come out. We have a great working relationship with them. They also have access to housing. They're able to help people get their driver's licenses and other resources, even down to a phone, or get them into treatment if it's some type of substance abuse. We also use the King County Mobile Crisis Team and Crisis Connection. They come out on a regular basis. We make a phone call and they come out. They come out of Seattle, so your wait time is generally anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Typically, it's around that hour time frame, but we do utilize them quite a bit. And then we have Swedish Hospital in Issaquah that we utilize, Harborview Medical Center, and several others. The city of Kirkland has a facility at their jail now where if there's somebody in crisis, we can utilize them. It's just a little bit of a different type of drive, but they are there for our assistance. So with the increased training and the requirements that we've had as far as the state and what they've put on the officers, we're doing a lot more. We're working alongside with our partners and throughout the county, and entities such as King County have on staff MHP still, just like we used to, and we can reach out to them, especially for somebody who doesn't reside here, who ended up here, who just needs help. There's avenues for us. When we go back and look at the call volumes, it's really hard to look at where we stand with a mental health professional at this time, considering the amount of training that we're getting. We're constantly evaluating this, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have on any of this. But King County did step up and allocate the funds for our training, and we are going to utilize it before anything happens in the next budget cycle. And that's my goal, is to get everybody through, and then hopefully through legislation or through strong suggestions from cities and police chiefs, the academy starts providing this before officers get to us.
Thank you, Chief Racy. I'll go to Councilmember Cotton.
So I do have probably a question and a comment. My question is on the stats. You had up as far as, that one right there. That I'm assuming that those volumes, the crisis intervention, the volumes were actually for Snoqualmie and North Bend?
Just Snoqualmie.
Just Snoqualmie. Okay, great. Good to know. And I do understand and am glad to hear that you folks are utilizing the funding for the training, because you're the ones that are going to be out there and not having to wait, like you said, for some other colleagues of various agencies to get out to you. I think that the number of calls that our previous mental health professional actually attended to was the ones that are up there are police, because my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is that she didn't respond with the fire department on any cases for that.
That's correct. We have a conversation before I put these numbers together at the end
Yeah.
of last year, and she only responded with police.
So fire department at least also has just been utilizing their training or the other agency resources that you had mentioned. So I think that's that definitely is something that we could hold on, is not needing to rush into getting another mental health professional for our department at this time, but put those monies towards other things. That was my comment, sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Holloway, do you have any questions? Comment?
No, I had a math question, but figured it out.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Anything else from the administration? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Chief. Oh, yes,
On this topic.
on this topic. Yes, on this topic. No, we're not done yet. So, okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Captain. Or
Always
Pete,
here if you have
right
questions.
thing. Sorry. My goodness. All right. Chief Bailey.
All right. Just share the
I
screen.
want to thank Lieutenant O'Donnell for inviting me in, and I spent the first 10 hours of their 48-hour shift yesterday hanging out with them. I helped clean the bay. It was a quiet day. Clean the bay out.
Sundays.
Yeah, and they made me go through some training with them, which, so if you need backup. But it was a quiet day. We went down to the Park Street house that is kind of recently acquired and that they're using for training purposes. It's a fabulous resource for them. North Bend came over and did some training at our station. We went shopping at Safeway.
Shop local.
Yeah, yeah, and just basically got a chance to shadow them as they're doing a lot of training while times are quiet. So, and I'm sure that now I'm not there. They've had other things going on.
Don't recall.
Yeah, very much so. So thank you very much. And with that, Captain or Chief Bailey.
Sir, good evening. Just for your benefit, Councilmember Holloway, we usually do these quarterly. The whole quarterly report is in the packet, but during the meeting, I just kind of hit some of the highlights and talk about some things that have changed or I think are important. But by any means, if you have any questions that come up, either that I don't talk about or that you see in the report that I don't go over, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to explain some of the things that are in there. One of the first things I want to point out is we try to keep track of goals and objectives, both with accreditation and our strategic plan. Just to hit on some of the things that have changed is I have started some discussions with legal about number 2 there regarding cleaning up the Snoqualmie Municipal Code for the fire department. A lot of it is language in there from back when it was a volunteer fire department. So that's one thing we have started on. So that's something new on here. A lot of the stuff you see in the report for accreditation has to kind of points to some more record keeping that we need to do and a program that we're hoping to get either later this year or in the next budget that will help us do some of these reports better and keep better track of our numbers that we need for accreditation. Since we don't have a full-time data person, we're going to need this program to be able to run that. So that's where you'll see a lot of the status reports for that in there kind of point to that. The next thing I want to point out is talk about where we end up at the end of the year for our call volume. Oh, I'm sorry. I did miss one on there. There was a new thing that we changed was there was an accreditation recommendation about starting a wildland program. And I just wanted to point out that, we now have started that with the purchase of the brush truck. And we were kind of waiting till we had one of our, with the loss of Lieutenant Laswell when he retired, we had a gap there for a subject matter expert. One of our firefighters just got off probation, Martha Duddles. She spent, I believe, the last 5 years doing wildland firefighting. So she's now moving into that role and she's working, going to be the SME for wildland. The goal is she's working right now on finishing the outfitting of that unit. And then we're going to be working on some response plans, some policies, but the goal is to get that up and running May, June timeframe. So that'll be ready for the summer season of any brush fires that we have here in the city. Okay, so back to incidences. We ended the year with 1,629 calls for service, just down a little bit, 86 from where we were last year. For 2024, we had 1,715, so we're at 1,629 for 2025, which was down 86. Not a big drop. That's still the second highest we've ever had. Obviously 17-15 was the highest, so we dropped just a little bit, but that's where we ended the year on our calls for service. Incidents wise, we include just kind of to give you an idea of what types of calls we go on. So this is, we compare it to the year before. So this is, ending up the end of last year. So this is our EMS calls were up a little bit from 50% to 55%. And you can see there on our mutual aid, the mutual aid calls, the given and received has gone up just slightly. And because of that, the Snoqualmie only has gone down a little bit. But really not a whole lot. We're staying right about the same that we normally have. And we'll talk about the calls here in just a second about the mutual aid calls and how that's significant. So you can see there, we keep track of east side calls, how many calls we go on east side, how many calls we go to Fall City, and then other would just be some, sometimes we might end up in Bellevue or Redmond or the Pass, just depending on how big of a call it is. So we have mutual aid given and the mutual aid received. So there's the numbers for those. And a reminder at the bottom there where it says large incidents, that just is kind of pointing out that, when we have a fire, big car accident, cardiac arrest, we get multiple units. So that's just kind of a separate little number I put in there just to let you know, yes, we did call in, East Side and Fall City those amount of times, but 12 of them were because of those big calls. The one that I really like to point out though is the calls versus unit. And this is something that the other council members heard me talk about the last couple of years is we got to remember that although with a call is one number, the amount of units they bring to the call is something to keep track of. And it helps when we're looking at mutual aid. So you can see from the report that when we talk about calls, although we went into Eastside 511 times, 520 times was a unit that we took in there. The big difference is when you look at what Eastside does to us. So they came to us 198, but if you look at units, it actually was 380, just a little under 382. So when you look at the units versus the actual calls, it's a lot closer in regards to mutual aid because they do bring a lot more help. So the difference there is when you look at unit versus calls is 138. When you talk about units is the difference between us and when we went to them and they came to us versus 313 when you look at calls. So you can see that that gap kind of closes a little bit when we talk about units. Our transport numbers are there on the bottom. Those actually went up for last year. 2024, we had 284, and then last year we had 327. And we do a couple, you can see the numbers there. We do kind of track how many times we transport out of East Side. So that's just another benefit we do when we do have to go on East Side calls. If we do get a transport out of it, then our department realizes the transport fees from that call. And that was roughly around $60,000 is how much we brought in for those calls outside the city is how much that roughly is how much we got from that. Next, we have some of our performance measures that we look at with accreditation. The one I want to point out, and this has to do with turnout times, is how long it takes us from when the call is received at dispatch to when we get out the door. For us, we try to keep it around 1:30 is our goal. And then anything over 1:30, the officers have to report back to me why it was over 1:30, whether they're out training, middle of the night, something like that. I do want to point out that we're down to one for 2025, that turnout time, that 90th percentile was down to 136, which is more where we like to see. You can see we were up there a little higher the last couple of years. Getting it back down to where we see that 136 is what we're shooting for.
But that's in part to the increase in staffing and not as many people out.
Honestly, I don't think that because this is just turnout time. This is just how as soon as the call hits the dispatch center to when our guys our guys and gals are on the vehicle leaving the station. So it doesn't really affect with how many units we take, okay, or the number of people on duty doesn't really affect how fast they get out the door.
It could be more related to the type of call where if they have to bunk up before getting in the rig to head out the door, depending on the type of call, that it can, if you're donning an air pack and your bunker gear, it can take, if you're doing it under 1 minute and 30 seconds, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
The next page talks about the travel time. So this is from when they leave the door to when they get to the call. And again, this report just covers city of Snoqualmie numbers. This, other than when we talk about mutual aid, when we're talking about calls, these aren't for numbers outside the city. Accreditation looks just at numbers inside the city. So you can see there that we were down to 7 minutes and 12 seconds for response time in the city, which is the lowest of the last 4 years. And I believe it's probably the lowest we've had in quite a while. So that's real good. We're trending in the right direction in getting to the city. That's kind of a static number. You know, it's going to change a little bit, but until you add a station or something like that, you're not going to get a huge difference. But it is showing that, you know, we can, you know, on an average, we can get anywhere within those 7 minutes. We do have a little section in here in fire inspections, just to kind of keep track of it. You can see last year we did 175 inspections, and that's on track with what we normally did. We did some catch up at the end of the year. We were running a little behind because of our training we had to do with all the probationary firefighters. But we ended up with 175 last year of initial inspections. And again, we do our inspections at a minimum, it's one every 3 years, but it really depends on the hazard class of the building. Down to earth flower shop probably is only going to get inspected once every 3 years. The high school is going to get inspected every year. So it depends on the class, the hazard class of the building. And we've worked this out with John Cooper with the building department, is whether they get it every year, every 2 years, or every 3 years, just depends on the type of occupancy and the risk factor that we're looking at with that building or that occupancy. The last one there is talking about property saved and lost, and this looks at fire loss in the city. Last year was great, 6%. The year before, it was a little bit higher because of that. Obviously, we had that big loss downtown, which was almost a total loss with the, you know, dollar wise was a loss with the building downtown in April 2 years ago. Last year, we really only had one fire in the city, and even then it was really small. You can see there that it was 99.9% was saved. So that means there was small, if I remember right, it was $10,000 loss, something like that. So last year was a great year, and we hope to continue that. But that's just something we kind of try to look at and keep track of how much of a loss there is in the city. But because we have so small numbers, that's why a lot of times you'll see it jump pretty big. If we had 2-3 structure fires in the city, our property saved is probably going to be pretty, that number is not going to be up around 90%. But I do think we do a really good job, though, when we do have fires, catching them early and keeping it, for the most part, we keep them to the room of origin. So the loss is usually is a lot lower than losing the whole residence, the whole building. So majority of the time we keep it to the room of origin.
Councilmember Cotton.
You're selling the department short by saying that, small fires, it's like any fire, potential is big. You guys are just getting there in time to do the best job that can be done. So appreciate it.
So that's just kind of what I wanted to go over. Like I said, it's part of the accreditation. One of the things they really preach is making sure that you're letting your council members, your electeds know where you are, what you're doing. And that's just something I like to put out there every quarter, just to kind of keep an idea of where we're going. We still have the annual report. We still have our accreditation review, things like that we're doing. But this is just a snapshot to let you know how the department's doing, especially on some of the call volumes, things like that. But again, if you have any questions, either in this format or by email or coming into my office, I'd be more than happy to dive into some of these other numbers if something piques your interest.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Thank you, Chief Bailey.
Thank you.
And with that, we come down to the end of our agenda. Items for future discussion, council members. Anything on your mind? Councilmember Cotton.
Yeah, and I did send an email. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but basically, I think over the next few months, we ought to consider kind of the public safety aspect of FIFA. If we're going to be having any fan zones either in the city, in the area, or around the valley. I don't know if the city has any requests or permits in progress for fan zones at the businesses or.
We'll keep it top of mind. Thank you. Anything else? With that, I'll call for adjournment. Is there a motion?
Second.
Been moved by Councilmember Holloway, second by Councilmember Cotton. With that, we will bring the meeting to a close at 5:50 PM. Thank you very much.